Be aware of terrible pronunciations. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are talking Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power episode 6 called Udûn. And Udûn was a wide depressed valley in the northwestern Mordor that lay between Cirith Gorgor and the Karak Angren. The origins of Udûn is related to the volcanic activities present in the lands of Mordor. It is suggested that the genesis of Udûn was linked to the formation of Mount Doom. Episode 6 is actually the most writers for a single episode so far, as it has 4 writers. The writers are Nicholas Adams and Justin Doble and J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. And today's episode has been directed by Charlotte Brandstrom, and the episode is 1 hour and 9 minutes in length, which makes it shorter than the 2 previous episodes and the same length as episode 3, Adar. So in the previous episode, episode 5 called Partings, we obviously saw the Númenóreans, Galadriel and Halbrand depart for Middle-earth, and we actually see Isildur and Galadriel meeting for the first time, and he reveals that he wants to get away from Númenor because it's not the real Númenor, whatever that means. I'm not really sure what that means. Is it because how it is being ruled or how it is now? It probably has to be linked with how it's being ruled or how the people are now compared to before. And then we have a quick interaction between Galadriel and Elendil on the case of the mother of Isildur, and it is revealed that she drowned. It's just a quick throwaway line almost, but they could obviously be lying. Now let's go to the important stuff. Obviously in the last episode we saw Adar and he was ready to march on Ostirith, and in the beginning of today's episode he actually speaks Quenya. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but Quenya was the language spoken by the non-Telerian elves who reached Valinor. Sindarin, however, almost like Quenya's simplified form, lasted many ages longer being spoken by elves, and it is Sindarin, not Quenyan, that is referred to by modern term Elvish. Now I believe we are going to see this at some point during the series. The Noldor who fled to Middle-earth following the darkening of Valinor spoke Quenya among themselves. And the darkening of Valinor was a broad event that occurred at the end of the Years of the Trees, which was caused by the destruction of the 2 trees of Valinor by Morgoth and Ungoliant in the year of 1495. And the Quenya language is something akin to Latin in the real world, and Tolkien himself referred to Quenya as Elf Latin. And it is stated on the one wiki to rule them all that Galadriel is perhaps the only major elf character in Lord of the Rings that had learned Quenya as a cradle tongue. She was born in Valinor the days of the Trees. It seems that during the Third Age, where Lord of the Rings takes place, Galadriel is the only actual elf from Valinor who is in Middle-earth. With that said, let's talk about the actual episode. As Adar's forces are marching upon the Tower of Ostirith, it is empty other than Arondir, who has set an elaborate trap for the orcs. It seems like he has summoned his inner Kevin from the Home Alone movies, and he actually uses his arrows to topple the actual watchtower on the orcs. So a minor victory for the Southlanders and Arondir, and the Southlanders manage to escape. They escape to a village, and at the village Arondir actually tries to break the blade, but he says no mere man can break this blade or something like that. It's something akin to almost the Ring. And the Southlanders are not really fighters, so they are forging weapons to prepare for a head-on battle, because eventually they know it is gonna come, because Adar, or the commander as they know him as, is not really gonna just back down. And then there's this phrase that Adar uttered first. It's called, or it says, and he spoke that in the beginning of the episode, and it was being repeated by Bronwyn when Arondir gives her his seed. And when I say he gives her his seed, I actually mean placing seed gently in her hand, and when I mean seed, I mean elfin seeds. Now there's no actual information on what elfin seeds actually are, but I think it's self-explanatory. New life in defiance of death. So you plant them down, and if you die, obviously there is new life because you die, but you plant 2 trees in your stead. And after Arondir gives her his seed, Arondir and Bronwyn finally kiss, and it only took 6 episodes. And I believe that I said in the first episode when we saw Arondir and Bronwyn that this might possibly be the first relationship between an elf and a human, but I believe that Elrond is a half-elf, which means that it cannot be true because he is a half-elf. Both his father and his mother were actually half-elves, but she actually chose to be immortal like Elrond's daughter Arwen. Now let's skip a little bit ahead to the actual battle, or the first battle as I like to call it, because they have set this trap in a cart which needs fire, and conveniently Bronwyn can't get the fire to start, but luckily an orc with a torch passes by and she manages to kill the orc, but not before the orc cuts the throat of the woman that's with her. But then she manages to set fire to the cart and block them in a ring of fire, which is actually a pretty genius plan. And at the end of the first battle, the villagers, the Southlanders, actually think they have won because they managed to defeat everyone, or Adar's first battalion, but it just happens that the Southlanders have been fighting other Southlanders because in the previous episode some Southlanders joined Adar, so they have been killing their own and they didn't know it because he sent the Southlanders and a mix of orcs, so they didn't know and they were armored up. But it's also like, if they didn't kill them, they would have killed them, if you know what I mean. So they pretty much had to kill them or they would die, which would be a pretty stupid plan, to be honest. It's actually a very clever plan by Adar because now that they have used their traps and valued their valuable resources, it just means that now their already small army is even smaller, so it will be easier to win when they send his second battalion in. And one thing I noticed is that Arondir is definitely not as skilled as other elves, let's say Legolas, Galadriel or Elrond, because he is actually saved by Bronwyn. You have seen the episode, so you obviously know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Adar sends in his second battalion and the Southlanders are just being absolutely slaughtered and they're being bombarded with arrows. I mean, at this point, I was just thinking that there's no way they could actually win. They just have to wait for the Númenóreans to come, because there was no way they were going to win. But yeah, with the Southlanders' forces defeated, Adar manages to break into the keep where they have retreated to, and they pretty much are surrounded. They stand absolutely no chance because most of them are injured or tired. So he has effectively won the battle at that point, because no one knows that the Númenóreans are on their way. But the only reason that Adar is there is because he wants the blade, and he is willing to slaughter everyone and anyone. And of course, you have seen the episode again, when he threatens Bronwyn, her son Theo reveals his location. I mean, I would have probably done the same. Are you actually going to let your mother die? I don't think so. But in the grand scheme of things, it was probably not such a good idea, because in hindsight the blade could do way more damage than your mother just being killed. But hey, I wasn't in that situation, so I don't know. But yeah, just before everyone is slaughtered, the Númenóreans arrive just in the nick of time to help them out. And now to something very, very stupid on the part of the Númenóreans and Galadriel and Halbrand, because in the middle of the battle, Adar is actually trying to escape with the blade, and Galadriel and Halbrand follow him, and they manage to catch him. But one thing that is so stupid is that he has the blade, or they think he has the blade. It's actually not the blade, it's just a decoy, if you will. And I could not believe that they did not check what was in the actual thing. They should have opened it up and looked at it, but they didn't for some reason. It's just so stupid. But it turns out that Adar gave the blade to that devout follower, and he manages to use it. He puts it in the keyhole, and well, this has to be one of the coolest scenes ever. We are literally witnessing the creation of Mordor in real freaking time. I mean, who would have thought we would ever see that?
Look at us. Hey, look at us.
Look at us, huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
But yeah, when he puts the blade in the keyhole, it unleashes some water under the earth throughout the tunnels that the orcs have been digging. And the water leads to what will one day become the ominous mountain, with lava under it, creating a volcanic eruption and meteor strikes basically. And then in the middle of this meteor strike, Adar escapes, and this is where that red iconic photo of Galadriel comes from. I believe we are gonna see it in the next episode. At the beginning of next episode, it's gonna be all red and Galadriel just standing there. But yeah, before the creation of Mordor basically, or Mount Doom, the Southlanders meet Halbrand for the first time, and I'm surprised that no one knows him, because when did he escape? Like, was he never a part of their community? Because they should know him. I was surprised when Bronwyn didn't know who he was. So he must not be from that area, even though he is a Southlander himself. So where has he been all this time? Like, where did he grow up? Because he clearly didn't grow up with these Southlanders. And it is revealed that Adar is indeed not Sauron, because Adar is actually one of the many elves taken by Morgoth, tortured and twisted into a new form of life. It almost sounds like he is a precursor to the Uruk-hai, but here it's called the Moriundur, Sons of the Dark, the first orcs, the Uruk. So they don't have the Hai in their name, like Saruman's orcs.
My fighting Uruk-hai.
But they were also elves, twisted and tortured into a new form of life.
Do you know how the orcs first came to be? They were elves once, taken by the dark powers, tortured and mutilated. A ruined and terrible form of life.
But the Uruk seem way more elven-like than the Uruk-hai. And one thing I didn't really like in this episode was how Galadriel treated Adar. Obviously Adar is a bad guy, he is working for the Dark Lord. I just think it's crazy how little sympathy Galadriel has for Adar, considering he was once an elf just like she was. I mean, he is still an elf, but he is twisted and tortured into something else. But he just happens to have been tortured and twisted by the Dark Lord. I mean, the same thing could have easily happened to her if she was taken by the Dark Lord. I mean, he didn't choose to become an Uruk. I mean, he was literally kidnapped. Come on now. You gotta have a little sympathy. But I think it's like a part of the story, because Galadriel is being consumed by the darkness. Because in her hunt for Morgoth's successor, she is becoming more and more dark. But that's what Adar is telling her. And then she realizes it when Halbrand stops her before she tries to kill him. But yeah, that has been my talking points for episode 6, Udûn. I realized in my previous episodes I mostly just summarized the episodes, so I tried to make it a little bit different here in episode 6 and have a little more fluidity, I guess, in my topics, because yeah, I was basically just summarizing the episodes and you have seen the episodes, so we have to analyze and interpret a little bit more, I think, to make the videos more interesting, because it's basically just summarizing the episodes as I've said. More interpret and analyze, like they say in school, and less summaries. But yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, subscribe if you want to more Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, and I will see you later. Goodbye.
The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air.